Hi everyone, welcome to the Coding Channel. Today is the fourth episode of our Java tutorial series for beginners. And in this episode, we are going to talk about the console user input and output in Java. This and more after a short while. If you're going to get the user input from the console, the first step is to instantiate an object of a scanner class. This is one way of doing that. Okay, so we will be using the scanner class, which is a built-in class within a java.util package. That is why don't forget to import the java.util, then that's a scanner if you are using the scanner class. Okay, now what I did here is that I just instantiate or create an object of scanner because my goal is I'm going to use some of the methods of a scanner class, and the only way to do that, to use that, or to reuse those methods, is to have my new version, or a new object, okay, of the scanner. Okay, and the first method that I'm going to use is the um, nextInt method. So for example, we have, okay, so this one, the nextInt method. Now the nextInt is again is a method of a scanner class that is used to get the user input from the console. Okay, and we will attach the scanner here before the nextInt. So we have a scanner and then separated by that. So that's why scanner dot nextInt, and then you just have to put a semicolon there. Okay, so this is now the method. Okay, and then the next step is, where are we going to store the value that we get from the user, which is an integer value, for example. Since we already have discussed the variables in our previous episode, so I'm sure that you know that already. If you haven't watched it yet, so I suggest that you watch it prior to this one, so that you'll have a better understanding of what a data type is all about. Okay, and also with a variable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to declare an integer variable by using an int, and then for example let me call it number 1. Okay, and then equal sign, and then a scanner dot nextInt. Okay, since we have used a scanner object here, so that's the syntax. Okay, so for example we will ask another we will get another input from the user. So we will have another input statement. Okay, so for example, number 2 is equal to scanner dot nextInt. Now if you want to to make it to have a what we call this, a user friendly in a console, so you just prompt the user to enter, for example, a number, or the first number. Okay, so we can do that by using the system dot out dot print, for example. And then let's say you need to prompt to enter number 1. Okay, something like that. And then after that, you will read this one, and another output statement. For example, I just have to put space there. Okay, so this is the output statement, and then the input statement, and then another output statement for number 2, for example, and then another input statement, and we store it to integer variable num2. So far we have now variables number 1 and number 2 having the values, the two values which the user have entered, for example. So let's try to run this first. Okay, so if you're going to run, there is now a prompt here. So asking us to enter a number. Let's see, for value for number 1. Okay, so for instance, we will input 5, and then press the enter key, and then another, for example, a 6, and then press the enter key. Okay, so far nothing happens except for the prompt, and then we get the user input. It's because we're not done yet. Okay, so let's just continue. Okay, so after we get the user input, okay, coming from the user, for example, the next step is the process. Okay, how are we going to do that? Okay, so you can just have put a process there, or if you want to let me show you. Okay, if you want to put all the variable declarations here, so we can just actually okay, let me show you. If you want to have a variable declaration there, so you can just have variable declaration, and this one you can just have it there, number one, and then for example we have number two. Okay, something like that. And then since you declare it already, okay, we will only use the variable name here. Okay, so we have now the declarations on top, and then we have the output statement, the input statement, and another output and input statement. Now the process is, what are we going to do with the numbers 1 and 2, for example? Okay, so if you are going to add, so let's try to have another variable here, another integer variable, for example, sum. Okay, and then just put the semicolon there. So because every statements in Java ends with a semicolon. Okay, keep that in mind. We have next. So if we're going now to add, how we're going to add and store in a variable sum. Okay, so we have sum is equal to number 1 plus number 2, and then another semicolon. So this is an example of an assignment statement. Okay, so let's try to run. Okay, so enter number 1 again. We have 5 and then 6. Okay, so as you can see, nothing happens again after we have entered the second value. It's because we are not, again, we're not done yet. Okay, so we are already finished the process of the, or yes, the process of this program. So the next step is the output statement. Okay, I normally follow this type of outline. It's like having an input, process, output. So these are the input statements, for example, and then we have the process, and then we have now the output. Okay, our output is what we just want to display, for example, system.out dot print or println. Okay, for example, the sum is, okay, the sum is, and then plus the value of sum. So that's how we do it. So again, this one is a string concatenation operator, and this one is an addition operator. Because in Java, there are the plus sign has a two functionality. Either you use it for addition or for string concatenation. So we in this case, we just want to display that the string, the sum is followed by the value of the sum. Okay, so that's it. So let's try again to run. Enter number 1, for example, 7, and then 6. Okay, the sum is 13. That's simple it is on how to get the user input coming from the user and how to display the output. Okay, so let's try to add another basic operation here. Okay, so for instance, aside from addition, we want to have a subtraction, we want to have a multiplication, we want to have a division, or we want to have a remainder. Okay, so that you will also know the other arithmetic operator. So we call this as a arithmetic operator. Okay, so let's try to have another. So if you want to, instead of for example declaring int let's say subtract, for example, or difference here, you can put in sum, comma, space, difference, comma, what else? We want to have product for multiplication, and then quotient, for example, for division, and then the remainder. Okay, so we can declare it this way, since all of these variables are of same type, which is an integer. Okay, and then we can now use the difference here. So difference is equal to number 1, this time minus sign. Okay, number 2, for example. Okay, another. If you want to get the product and then store it in a product variable, so product is equal to number 1, and then we use the asterisk for multiplication, and then a number 2. Okay, simple as that. Next, we have a quotient. So quotient is equal to number 1, and then we use the forward slash for division, and then number 2, and semicolon. So again, these are assignment statement. Okay. What else? We have remainder. If we want to get the remainder, okay, in Java, we use the modulo operator, which is the percent sign. Okay. And then, for example, we have number 2. That's it. And then, for the output statement, so we can have, just need to copy this one. Instead of the sum is, we can use here the difference is, and then we just replace the variable to difference. Okay, that's it. And then let's try to copy this one again for the product, for the quotient, and for the remainder. So we have a total of 5 output statement. So let's try to so the product is, and then we will just have to replace again with the product variable. And then for the quotient, so the quotient is, and then let's try to use the quotient variable. Okay, and then next we have remainder. So remainder, the remainder is, and then we have remainder. Okay. Okay, that's it. Output statement, process. Okay, output and input statement. You have the variable declaration. Okay, let's try to run. So we now have enter number 1. We have 5 and then 7. Okay, so the difference is -2. The sum is 12. The product is 35. 5 times 7 is 35. The quotient 5 divided by 7. Of course, the quotient is 0 because we are talking of integers here. And then the remainder is 5. Okay, so that is correct. Okay, and next, let's try to add here, for example, can use a println here. Okay, just a println just to have a space. Something like this. Enter 1, we have 7, we have 8. Okay, so as you can see, we have now the output, okay, with a space, a vertical space, just because of one system.out that println. Okay, so that's it. Okay, now what if instead of having 1, 2, 3, 6 output statements here using system that println, okay, how are we going to convert this if we want to use only one output statement? Okay, so I'll show you how. Okay, so for instance, I will be just using one output statement instead of having this one. Okay, so I'll just try to put this inside of a comment. Okay, that's it. And then I will show you another way of an output statement by only using one output statement. Okay, so the first one is we need to display this one, right? The sum. So for example, and then if you want to have a new line before the sum, so we can just use the escape character. Okay, that we already tackled this in our previous episode. So the backslash, I'm sorry, the backslash n. Okay, so that's it. So the sum is, and then the sum. Okay, and then we will just use the plus sign here, the string concatenation operator, and then we will attach this one again. The difference is, for example, here. Okay, something like that. Okay, or we can actually put this, okay, the second line, and then we will just also copy this one. Okay, the output is actually still the same, but this time we are just using one output statement. So I'm just showing you the other way or other technique of doing this. Okay, and then okay, so let me copy this one again here, and then I'll just have to put it here. Okay, and then we just have to put the backslash n. Okay, and then another, just have to add a plus sign there, another quotient, for example, here, and then press the enter key, and then another, the backslash n, and then another plus sign. Then for the remainder, you just have to use this one, backslash n. Okay, so 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3. Okay, that's it. So let's try this one is already inside of the comment, so this one is being ignored now by the Java interpreter, and then we will executing this output statement. So if we're going to run, okay, so for example we have 4 and then 3, so the sum is 7, the difference is 1, the product is 12, and then the quotient is, okay, let's try to use the backslash n here. Okay, so that's it. Again, let's try to run, and then we have the 5 and then 4. Okay, so the sum is 9, the difference is 1, the product is 20, the quotient is 1, and then the remainder is also 1. Now so another, if you want to get a string from the user, for example, we want to add here enter system.out print, for example, enter your name. Okay, and then let's try to declare here a non-primitive type string. Then for example we have a name, and then we will use name here. We will store the string user input by using again scanner object name dot next. Okay, so we use this if you want to get the a string user input, so the next. So let's try to run. Okay, now for example, enter your name, let's say for example Julian. Once you press the enter key, so enter a number 1. For example, we have 5, and then we have 4. Okay, so the output is hi Julian, and the sum is 9, the difference, and then up to the remainder, because I just have added here hi and then the name. Okay, now let's try to run again. So for example, you want to include the last name, for example Julian T, and then okay, so that's the error of using next, because if you if there is space, so next method of a scanner class is not applicable, but instead we can use nextLine if you want to, if you have a string having a white space, or if you want to read the entire line. Okay, so we will use the nextLine. So let's try to run again. So instead of next, so we use nextLine, and then for example let's try another. So Julian T, for example, and then enter number 1, 5, and then 6. Okay, now the output is 2 words here. Okay, for the first name, and then for example the last name. So that's another method of a scanner class. And aside from that, if you want, maybe I just have to just put it here. Okay, if you want to use, for example, there's a another method, next float. If you want to read a an input with a decimal point, okay, and then the variable, for example, that you're going to store is a float variable. Then aside from that, you can also use double to get the user input having a decimal point, okay, for a double. Okay, and you know that already. If you want to get a boolean input, let's say true or false, so you can use next boolean. And then aside from that, we have also next uh, byte, for example. If you want to store or get the user input and then store it in a byte variable, so you can use that one. Or a next short, or a next long. Okay, so these are just the most common method of the scanner class that we can use, okay, if we want to get the user input with different data types. So that's all. These are the source code for this episode. And that's all for today. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, show your love through comments and favorites. God bless and thank you for watching.